This is the Healey Brothers Show.
Something that the world's going crazy about right now is the tariffs and panic. The stock market's going down. But we're going to give a little insight on it, what the auto industry is doing, because that's what we're focused on, and what tariffs are affecting what cars, how it's going to affect them, and then what the OEMs are coming to the table with and to help the consumer. So, because affordability is a major issue and something we have to address. So first off, since Ford's seems to be leading the way, let's talk about tariffs and what the major brands are doing to adapt to tariffs. And I'll let you start, considering you're on the dealer council and all that.
So I think Ford is trying to figure it all out still. I think all the manufacturers are still trying to figure it out because it affects vehicles that even they build in the United States, because a lot of the components in those vehicles are coming from overseas. So, I don't think anybody's dialed in exactly what it's going to do to the cost structure from the manufacturer point of view. I think they're still going through all the analytics and figuring out how they're going to work with that. I can tell you that no manufacturer, at least domestically, wants to be the first one to come out and say they raise prices.
Yep.
I think the media attention to that is going to be negative. So I think they're all sort of sitting back and going, how can we hold on the longest before we have to do anything? And then Ford's in a little bit better position than some of the other manufacturers. I mean, let's face it, Ford builds 80% of the cars they sell.
Yeah, they're right at, according to, it's like right at 77%, and also the F-150 is all built in the United States. So
there's no doubt when you look at Stellantis and General Motors, the numbers are less than that. So Ford sees it as an advantage, and I think that's what drove them to from America for America.
Yeah.
I think they see an opportunity to get the word out and to let consumers know that nobody builds more cars in America than Ford Motor Company.
I mean, whoever came up with that too is
interesting.
Do you think they're going to put Made in America stickers all over these cars?
I don't know. Well, Ford says they're assembled in America.
Right.
Okay. So
yeah, the parts, because we had that North American pack where they started going for cheaper labor in Canada and Mexico to have all these parts made. So, but just a little stat. So Stellantis is actually in slightly better position than GM, and Stellantis is at 57% are assembled in America, and then
what's GM? 40?
GM is 52%. And then Ford is right at the 80%, 77%. But they're like the number one selling vehicle. Ford F-150 is made here. Silverado is an issue. A lot of it's made in Canada.
Especially the 2500, 3500s.
So the other thing that concerns me with all this from the domestics is what happens to the EV investment that they've been making over the last couple of years. So you've got all this money that they've been piling into the EV market and to EV to be able to compete long term. And now you're going to have these tremendous price pressure on new cars, and you don't want to raise prices too high. You need to be able to be affordable in the market. And does that end up cutting back on their EV capital disbursements? And do they actually go backwards in the EV market over a period of time right now as they're trying to stay competitive in today's market?
Well, also the EV tax credit's up for grabs now too. Like, you don't know what's happening with that.
I think Stellantis you're watching that in real time with Stellantis. Going back towards those Hellcat motors, the 5.7s, the 6.2s, the 6.4s. That's all the talk right now.
Trump said the other day he wants to roll everything back to the 2020 EPA regulation guidelines. So maybe we're just going to take a pause or a little step back so it won't be so tight with the regulations as far as, whatever the number is, the average car has to average 55 miles per gallon or something. It's a big jump.
But we have to keep in mind though that the state mandates, the state California emissions trump the federal emissions. So whenever Trump does, if the state of New York, for say, doesn't come off of the California emission mandate, it really doesn't matter what the feds do.
Right.
Oh yeah, it's
just very true.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch.
It's going to be interesting to watch how it works itself out.
Yeah.
So what did Ford do? And what did Stellantis just follow behind them and do?
Employee pricing for everybody. I mean, I think that Ford wants to drive traffic. They had, I believe, a 67-day inventory on the ground as of March 31st. So they
much
feel
better than it was trending at one point, right?
Yep. Yeah. So I think they feel they're in a great position right now. In order, they have cars on the ground. They have dealers that are engaged. They want to move some product. Yeah. So it's a great time for a consumer to buy a car. It really is.
Are they doing it with Lincoln too?
They're doing it with Lincoln too.
Great.
And then they just excluded some products, but majority of products are on the table.
Majority are, except for the 25 Navigator and the 25 Expedition, 25 Super Duties, and then their Raptor specialty vehicle lines. Everything else is included. Everything.
Stellantis is pretty much the same way. They followed suit. Just some other stats. So Hyundai and Kia, another brand that we have a lot of volume in, they're 33% made in America or assembled in America. 33%. But also they're making massive investments. Do we think that's going to help with tariffs, help keep prices? Do you think Trump's going to lay up on Korean imports? How do we see that going? Is that going to affect? I mean, they just announced another $21 billion investment after a $10 billion Georgia plant.
Right.
So it's just a lot going on.
I don't know if it's gonna matter that, you know, a company like Hyundai or Kia or let's say Samsung makes the investment because the tariffs are overall for the country. I personally think that right now there's probably a ton of negotiations going on, and you know, if a country is charging the US 10% and we said, okay, well now we're going to charge you 10%, I think there's probably something that's going to come back and they're both going to get cut to 5%. Or maybe that country just says, okay, then we'll waive tariffs if you waive tariffs. And then, right. But every country is going to have its own negotiations. It's not going to be a blanket with everything. So it depends on how many tariffs or what's the dollar in the GDP, the export import for a country like Sri Lanka. Is that going to matter? Probably not. But a country like India or, you know, the European Union, you know, that's a big deal.
Yeah. All right. So now to the most important part where we don't get to sell anything, no one buys it without our consumer. It already is a major issue and we're hearing it every day in the showrooms and is affordability. And this scares the shit out of customers. When they hear tariffs, they know prices are going to go up because they know all these cars aren't made in America. That's scary for consumer. They already are at their wits' end with being able to afford a payment now with how expensive the vehicles are. And I think, like we said, the employee pricing is one thing. What else are we doing to kind of let the customer know we're here to help them, support them? And what do we think the OEMs are going to finally break in to really do to settle those nerves to keep consumers buying? Because if they stop buying, then there's a major issue for everyone here. So
I think they already have. I think that the announcements from Ford and Stellantis, and you can see, I was looking at some of the payments from Hyundai and Kia that came out over the last couple of days from our general managers, and they're still aggressive payments. They're super aggressive. They're super aggressive payments. So I don't think you're going to see anything back off right now. Listen, they can't afford to shut down assembly plants in the United States. They just can't afford to do it because there's union contracts with a lot of these manufacturers. There's a lot of different pieces of the puzzle that affect that. So I do believe that they are going to continue to respond. I think we're going to see low APRs come back in the third quarter of this year. That's where I think that they're going to.
What? No one drastically.
I think you're actually watching factories that have been shuttered for a long time actually start to go back on.
Sounds like someone is discussing economic predictions.
I think you'll watch them go back online. You're watching an Ohio plant that Volkswagen's going to open up their Scout division with.
You can't make that shit up.
Yeah.
But I think you'll start seeing you're going to really see how nimble these manufacturers are and how quick technology is moving and how quick they could get some of these plants back up and running.
But I think my problem with these tariffs for the auto industry is that you can't build an auto plant in the United States in 2 months or 3 months.
Not even 3 years.
1 year.
Not even 3 years.
Or 3 years. So, you know, I guess I could see, yeah, you can grow your corn back in the United States instead of somewhere else. But for automobile to be produced in the United States, it's so complex. So I would have much preferred to have seen something like maybe a 5% increase a tariff this year and another 5% next year, another 5% next year, and another 5% the following year to give the automakers some time in order to invest in U.S. production. Because I think at the end of the day, U.S. production of our industry is great for America.
Well, more jobs, better economy.
Anybody could argue that point. They're great paying jobs. We bring that production to the United States, but they just can't react this quick. It's just impossible.
Yeah.
From the consumer standpoint, though, I think that if you have a trade, it's going to go back to kind of what happened during COVID. Yes. So if new car prices increase, make a number up 10%, well, eventually, and it'll probably be pretty quick, your used car is going to be worth 10% more. You know, the used car are going to go with it. If an Explorer goes from the price of $50,000 to $60,000, well, then that used Explorer is going to be worth for $20,000 now probably $30,000. So if you have a trade, you're going to be in the same situation as during COVID. Your car is going to be worth more. So hopefully the net difference comes close to the same. If you're going to lease a vehicle, then, you know, they would have to incentivized the lease payments, I think, to keep it roughly what it was. But the wholesale market's going to adjust this to whatever the new car market.
It's adjusting right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
You're gonna hear that
Part
word
of it.
equity come back into our showroom a whole lot.
yeah.
Yeah.
Equity and cheap car and affordable vehicles.
And lease buyouts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Equity in my lease.
But I have to give it to like Stellantis and Ford really stepping up to the table and delivering that message. I think it's phenomenal for their brand. It puts the consumer's mind at ease, which is most important. You want to keep them loyal to your brand, and you might see some more loyalty. Like, hey, we came out to help you guys. Let's stick with us here. We're gonna all get this through together. And that American message, I think, came back around, which is awesome to see.
Yeah,
And
I got a text yesterday from a high level media executive that just said Ford is so smart.
Yeah.
As soon as we heard that.
I mean,
all the text
Great
said.
play.
That's all the text said to me. Ford is so smart.
that American message too. Their marketing manager, I don't know who came up with that. They're getting their paycheck with that. I thought that was phenomenal. As soon as you sent that to me, I was like, that is a home run. And I'm glad they were the first one to do it. Granted, we're heavy Ford dealer.
Yeah.
We're heavy American dealer.
Yes, we are.
Stellantis followed suit, so that's great for the consumer, and I mean, it's a perfect time to buy. So you can't argue with that. I mean, the best pricing probably we've had in a long time, like this kind of on all these models.
So when you look at the media, everybody's talking about cars getting more expensive. Well, guess what? In April, they just got less expensive for the consumer.
Yeah.
Okay, they just got less expensive. So everything that the media has been saying, cars prices are going up, car prices are going, they haven't gone up. They just came down. They just
That's gonna be the first time I've ever.
Talk about it being ironic, and I'm not saying it's going to last forever, but right now, if you go into a Stellantis or a Ford dealer, and for all of our brands, GM didn't raise their prices. They don't lower incentive levels. Kia didn't. Hyundai didn't. It's a great time to buy a car. It's not happening. Now, might it happen in the third quarter this year? Absolutely. But it's not happening today.
Nope. And there's inventory on the ground too. So there also is protected inventory at our other brands as well. That's not going to get the tariff, that 25% tariff. So we're a lease market. So these other OEMs have to be competitive, or they'll lose that market share because they're competitive people. So either way, you're going to get a good deal. And how often can we say that vehicles got cheaper in the last 5 years? Yeah. So one last thing I want to touch on is, I mean, we've all seen it, and 5 days ago, is that massive sales surge. Are the consumers getting the message, or is it panic, or where do we think with that? Do you think it's going to continue for 60, 90 days? Because it's going to be the best deals you're going to get in the last 5 years probably on a vehicle.
I think April and May are going to be tremendous months in the automobile industry. Sales-wise.
I agree.
Okay, what worries me though is the third and fourth quarter of the year, because the reality is you just don't decide to buy a car. It's something that's that's planned in your budget. It's planned in your household. It's planned in your business. So if you move it ahead,
you're moving people ahead.
Well, all we're doing is we're taking second half 2025 intenders and moving them into the first half of the year. So at some point there has to be a correction for that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
That's it.
Well, the correction, and then hopefully we straighten this out, rates come down, and you could kind of stabilize that need for a vehicle.
Yeah, and what somebody mentioned here a little bit earlier is, there's negotiations going on 24/7 right now.
Oh, yeah.
So, these tariffs could be gone on April 15th. We don't know that.
Yeah, I mean, he's a negotiator. He lives to negotiate. So
we really don't know.
Yeah. I think his hope also is by correcting a lot of things that are a lot of waste in the government, that other portions of your life are going to become less expensive. So even if this portion becomes more expensive, the car itself has tariffs attached to it and it becomes more expensive. Things like you're getting more taxes back, or eggs are cheaper, rent is cheaper. I mean, there's going to be
Gas is cheaper.
well, eggs are cheaper.
Yeah.
So eggs are cheaper.
The Rose Garden letter.
Yeah. No, but it's just also like one thing to look at it. 5 days ago, we were panicking like, oh my God, how expensive are these cars going to get? And then these OEMs get together and they're like, we're gonna do this for America, kind of a thing. And let's hope it works out. I mean, I think in the long run, tariffs are better, because when you look at that chart that they posted of us just getting hammered by other countries, like I went to Korea, they don't want any American cars there.
It was something like 100% tariff. Yeah, you only saw
was
Kias and Hyundai.
93% is their brands. Like, it's incredible. And then the second biggest one is Chevrolet because they have the little minivan thing over there.
A
for
Chevy
transfer, but-
Spark that cost at the
but it's
time
like-
when I went,
it's alarming.
12. A Chevy Spark was like $16,000, and over there it was like a $40,000 car. So you didn't see anything other than Audis and Mercedes, the people that could afford those very expensive vehicles. And everything else is just Hyundai and Kia. A gray car, white car, black car.
Yeah.
Well,
So, I mean, before we wrap up here, just in the long run, tariffs are there, that they're in place. Obviously, for the foreseeable future, we do have good pricing in line. It's good. Affordability is there for the consumer. So you can't argue that. Granted, this can change like this. You don't know what's going to happen. And we'll keep you updated. But is there anything else you guys want to add? Anything you want to add?
No, my biggest concern isn't today, tomorrow, or quite honestly, even 2025. It's that these stay in place, and American automobile manufacturers or American companies have to move capital from investing in future EVs and in future technology in order to stay competitive in today's market. And you have the Chinese and BYD and these other companies that are really making a dent in other areas of the world. And eventually they're going to get into the United States.
1000%.
We cannot put the obstacles in front of the American manufacturers not to invest in the technology and the different powertrains that the future is going to demand. Otherwise, 5 years from now, we're going to be in worse shape than today.
Yeah,
And that's my concern.
innovation it needs to be part of everyone's book. I mean, even for dealers, like, we need to be innovative all the time for how we sell cars. The OEMs, if they're not innovative, they just die. They become obsolete. So, I mean, technology is the way of the world. So if you're not getting with it, you're just dying.
Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to like, comment, hit that subscribe button, and follow us at Healey Brothers on all social platforms.